Welcome to the Aesthetic Doctor Podcast. We don't shy away and keep secrets here. We empower you with education, telling you the truth about all things aesthetic medicine, while encouraging you to be the best version of yourself. It's time to look great and feel good doing it. This is your host, mom, speaker, and board-certified physician, Dr. Judith Borger.
Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 67 of the Aesthetic Doctor Podcast. This is Dr. Borger, your host. I want to start today with a little bit of a travel story of how I got stuck in that wonderful, huge, worldwide Microsoft CloudStrike outage. So, for those of you who did not hear about this, basically worldwide, 8.5 million Microsoft computers that were running a system called CloudStrike went down, including a lot of the systems that are used by major airlines, most importantly Delta, which is one of the major airlines in the United States. So I had just finished my first week of locums. I worked the night shift and I was just going to fly back home. And 2 days prior, this whole outage happened. And it was just reported how there was like tens of thousands of people just stuck at airports and it was complete mayhem. And nobody kind of knew everything, but sort of that it was getting better, I guess. That morning after work, I actually looked at my flights and they were all showing on time. I had considered booking a flight with Southwest instead, but everything showed on time, and seeing that this happened 2 days ago, I was like, oh, okay, everything must be back to normal. I'll get to the airport extra early. Mind you, again, this was after night shift, and there I went to the airport, went to the lounge, everything showed on time, until it wasn't. So we actually got to get on our airplane and they were like, hey, so this flight's going to be like an hour delayed. We're just going to let you sit on this airplane for an hour so we don't have to board and unboard people and you guys just chill out. And then what happened is about an hour later, they were like, hey, so this flight is not going to fly for another 3 or 4 hours. So everybody get off the plane. And I went back to the lounge because what else am I going to do? And suddenly my app wasn't working. And then even though it had been 3 hours, the flight showed boarding. So I went back down because I didn't want to miss the flight, but there was no boarding. And pretty much all the other flights had been canceled. But they were like, hey, we're going to fly 2 flights to Atlanta. This is one and this is the other. Who doesn't want to fly anymore? Who wants to fly? And something all these people started rushing this gate because they, of course, all wanted their flight to be taken off and all of this stuff and wanted to get on this flight and not this flight. So I just kind of waited around a little bit longer. We got on the plane with a lot of delay, ended up taking off. In the meanwhile, though, also, my flight to Fayetteville had been canceled. So I had gotten one of the agents to rebook me to Raleigh at midnight or something. And so off we went. When we landed in Atlanta, we just sat there and they were like, so we can't really find a ground crew or somebody to drive the jet bridge to the plane. So again, we waited and waited. And then once we finally got off this plane, mind you, I don't know, it was 10 p.m. and I've been at the airport all day. Kansas City is an hour back. So, it's a 2-hour flight. It shouldn't have been that bad. And I have never seen anything like this in the Atlanta airport. I mean, there's people everywhere. There's just people sleeping on the floor, people queuing in line down the entire terminal for some of those Delta help desks. Kids, people, huge lines for any of the restaurants. I mean, it's just mayhem. So I end up going to my gate, the one for the other flight for Atlanta, and it says that it's been delayed more and more and more. So now it's going to be a couple hours, and then there's another flight that I actually got the gate agents to book me on standby. So I go to that flight, it's also delayed. And so what they do is they just keep pushing these flights back, right? Instead of canceling them, they just keep pushing these flights back. And in the meantime, I also look like maybe I should just get a Hyatt and get a flight tomorrow. And on any of the hotel rental websites, there's like no hotel rooms within 30 miles to be found, like none. And so the app doesn't work. Everybody's somewhere. We're at the airport. This flight just keeps getting pushed back and back and back and back. And I talked to the gate agent and she's like, yeah, actually, we don't have crew for this flight. The other flight doesn't have crew either. So nobody has crew. So I don't know why they're just not canceling the flight. I was like, okay, so if this flight isn't going to fly, when's the next flight I can get on? And she's like, well, we might be able to get you a flight on Tuesday and Wednesday. Mind you, this is Sunday. And I was like, absolutely not. So now I'm trying to figure out all of the ways that I could possibly get back home, because there's like literally people next to me that were like, yeah, our flight was canceled on Friday and our next one is on Tuesday. And I was like, in my mind, I wouldn't say this out loud, like, you're literally going to sit for 4 days at the airport, like, and just sit here with your children? Like, there is no way this is going to happen to me. So I looked for hotels, no hotels. And then I magically got like a rental car. So I head to the rental car center. And again, I mean, there's just so many people everywhere. And this is kind of where the story gets a little interesting. Of course, there's thousands of people everywhere. And there was these two women, and I just kind of felt drawn to talk to them. So I was like, hey, you guys, where are you going? And one of them sort of looks at me, and the other one was like, oh, Raleigh. And I was like, oh, you're on my Raleigh flight. I'm on the Raleigh flight too. They're like, yeah, we don't think it's going to fly today. It's not canceled yet, but apparently they don't have pilots. So we were like, yeah, that's what we heard. And you know, it's a bad sign when even the gate agents for your gate leaves. So it's like 1 a.m. now. And, you know, mind you, I've been up since like not the day before, but the day before, because I work night shift. And I say to one of them, I was like, listen, we should make a plan and just exchange numbers, because I'm not sure how many cars there are actually going to be. So if one of us gets a car and the other ones don't, like, we should totally carpool. And one of them was like, oh, that's a really good idea, and asked me for my number and texted me. Well, we go to our respective rental car counters, and I rented from Avis, and the line was like 200 people long. It was ridiculous. Well, anyway, I get in the line, chat with some people in line. Everybody was actually surprisingly like cool. I mean, there was a couple of people on the plane that were losing their mind, but I think a lot of people recognized that the people on the ground were not the ones causing the issue. So I was actually super impressed how in this whole mayhem and the chaos, like, there was a lot of shared humanity. But anyway, so like a 2-hour line, about an hour through this line, my new friend texted me and was like, yeah, so we get to our rental car counter and they won't actually rent us a car. And I was like, well, I'm halfway through this line. She's like, okay, well, hang out. And I get a car, right? So I text them back. I was like, I got a car. Like, come on now. Of course, I rented a minivan and they didn't have any of those. I was like, I don't care. Just like a car. 4 wheels. It needs a gas tank because I don't want to charge it. But please just get me a car. I get a Monster from one of the vending machines. We find this car in the actual garage and we about to drive out the gate, like, right? And even though you do the rental car thing on the counter, of course, once you get out, they check your paperwork again and the keys for the car and your license and all of that stuff. So we're literally there and the lady's checking our thing and her manager comes and he's like, listen, we're not going to have enough inventory left. We're shutting this rental car center down. Like, nobody's going to be able to rent a car. And like, out the gate I drive. I was like, oh, thank God. So here we are on a middle of the night road trip from Atlanta to Fayetteville after having been up for like, at this one, it's like a day and a half, right? And what? We had like a fabulous time. We were just chatting and joking and eating candy. And like, yeah, I mean, it was in the middle of the night and nobody wanted to drive and it sucked, but it was actually like a cool little road trip. Like, right? We realized like we had so much in common. We talked about careers and especially one of my new friends, like she had a son that was exactly the same age as my son. So we talked about the motherhood, maternity fashions of 20 plus years ago, 21, 22 years ago. So if any of you went through that motherhood phase where the only option for maternity clothes was motherhood, maternity, and the same stores in every mall, like just let me know. But anyway, we actually had like a really fun time. And that brings me to the point of this episode, which is like, coming from a place of yes. There is this attitude about being open to the universe and the synchronicities of the universe, right? And we talked about this during the drive. Also, because especially the woman that was a little more hesitant to talk to me, she's like, I'm so glad you talked to us. I'm glad you like just came up and chatted with us and offered this, because we would have been stuck in Atlanta for days not getting a rental car, right? And the other thing that happened is I drove the first like 3.5 hours from Atlanta, and they were taking a little nap for part of it. So I, on headphones, listened to the book Diana Herself by Martha Beck, which was really awesome. And it's really about Diana, and I haven't gotten through it yet, so I'm giving you the beginning of the story. And, she gets fired from her perfectly average sort of job where she's stuck in just doing the mundane grind, and then sort of starts really becoming this other person and fulfilling like part of her, like not potential, but following her heart and fulfilling like sort of all that she wants to do and all that she's meant to do. I haven't gotten all the way through yet, so if the story changes, I'll let you know. But anyway, what was also really funny, and I was really giggling through it, that Martha Beck reads this book, and as many of you know, I'm a Martha Beck Wayfinder certified coach. But while I'm in the car with these women driving them, right, that I've just met today, I'm listening to this audiobook, and she says, well, sometimes like the moments of despair, like put you to a point that you're open to new possibilities. And she actually gives the example of, remember, it's like when there's a huge travel delay and you talk to the person next to you and they end up becoming your best friend. And so there was just so many synchronicities, because here I am in this exact situation with my two new friends. And that was really, again, this whole coming from a place of yes. I have really worked on opening my heart and being open to possibilities, but I'm telling you the story because it really reminded me how much this place of yes and this attitude of possibility and being open to what the universe sends your way is just an amazing one. So I made new friends. We've been texting since, and it was actually sweet because my son recognized that, I showed up at some point at my house in the morning, like mid-morning, and he was like, Mommy brought some new friends home. Like, right? Like, it's totally normal to show up with two random strangers, which again, if you're my child, is not that abnormal. But the possibility of yes, and the possibility of being open to possibility and opportunity and synchronicities and signs sent from the universe is such a positive thing. It's such a powerful way to be, to sort of really co-create and listen versus being closed off. And the place of yes is really the way my friend Erin phrased it, because she's currently looking for love. And when I asked her what she wants in a potential partner, that is the thing she said. One of the things. It's like, I want somebody who comes from a place of yes. And I thought it was just the most profound and beautiful thing, because what an amazing attribute to have is to be somebody who comes from a place of yes. So my little travel story was all about this, coming from a place of yes, making new friendships, being open to the universe, being open to solutions, and then also that synchronicity of it being confirmed by Martha Beck, that it's a thing. So that is my quick story for today. And really, because you're listening to this, I think I would want you to say, like, where can I maybe soften and open? And again, coming from a place of yes has nothing to do with losing your boundaries, because it doesn't mean I'm gonna violate my boundaries, I'm gonna get hurt or anything like that. It's just as an attitude when you're safe, when you're secure, to be open to the universe, to divine guidance, to, depending on what your religion is, what God guides you to do, what the universe guides you to do, what little synchronicities in life show up, what little signs point you in a way, and then really being in a place of yes. The other thing that this experience really reinforced me is how much I love community. It was so much more fun to drive with 2 other people, even though we were probably like manic and cracked up on caffeine and candy by the time it was like 5 a.m. But we had fun, right? And it would have sucked to have done the drive by myself, right? Again, post night shift, up a whole other day, like, right? It would have just been such a sucky and probably somewhat dangerous experience just because I was so tired. But to do it with friends who are in the same situation and to share the humanity, to share the experience, and to find those ways in which we are connected, because we found out that we had so much in common, was like a beautiful, beautiful experience. And I think that's also what I always try to create in my communities, in my coaching, and in my new retreat that we're doing in April. If you have not heard about it, I'm hosting a retreat in April at the beautiful Miraval in Tucson. And again, the guidance, the intuitive vision for it came to me as a very clear vision. And it's going to be all about sisterhood. It's going to be all about being in aligned sisterhood, healing and safety, being supportive, having fun, transforming, really with amazing facilitators. I mean, please check out the Aesthetic Doctor website. It has a link onto the retreat. I have world-class coaches. They're going to facilitate world-class changing session on your richest life, on manifestation, on an inner child workshop as to what does your inner child need and how can we heal our inner child, on that divine feminine and how can we really like embody and awaken our divine feminine. But other than that, there's also going to be this tremendous sisterhood where really it's all about what do we have in common? How can our collective consciousness and our collective energies uplift and heal and transform everybody? There's group coaching for 4 weeks so that we already are starting that transformative journey, that we're already connected, getting started in the transformation. And we're going to really see the retreat as a celebration, as a culmination of everything. So if you're a professional woman, again, that's why I'm not limiting it to any profession, but it is going to be women. So if you identify as a woman, this is for you. Please join me at the Miraval Retreat. Find out more about it at the Aesthetic Doctor website. It's going to be magical. It's going to be transformative. It's going to be powerful. It's going to be fun. It's going to be relaxing. It's going to be everything. I am so lit up about this retreat, and it's the most me thing that I've ever created. So the possibility of yes is amazing. Coming from a place of yes leads to just incredible experiences in life. And I want to live my life to the fullest. So with that said, I will see you next time. And as a final little tidbit, check out the retreat and I would love to welcome you all. Much love until next time. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Aesthetic Doctor podcast with Dr. Judith Borger. We'd love to connect with you outside of the show. Follow Dr. Borger on Instagram at Dr. Borger and find more online and ways to work with Dr. Borger at www.theaestheticdoctor.com. Until next time, be well.